What's happening, everyone? Thank you for joining me back here at Sharp Focus. Today I have a video that's going to go over my printing process. A lot of photographers don't do anything with print work anymore, and that's because everything's so digitalized. Even the customers, if you're working for someone, most of them are happy if you're giving them electronic versions of their photos, and so printed photos have kind of fallen by the wayside. However, as a photographer, I'm telling you, there's so much that comes to life when you put your creativity on paper. When you put it on paper, there's nowhere to hide. I mean, it all just comes to life there. So today I'm going to show you my process for printing a photo. And so maybe it'll help you grow as a photographer. Maybe it's something that will, spark an interest in you. And that's why I want to show you my printing process for using Lightroom and the Canon Pro-1000 printer. Let's get started. We're using Lightroom, and we're going to assume that you just finished editing your photo. You've done everything you wanted to do in Lightroom, and it's a finalized file. So now we're going to take that and go from there. On your main screen, you're going to go over simply to print. And before we get into the options here, you're going to go through page setup and print settings first over here on the bottom left. And I already have my printer set up, but if you don't, you want to make sure that you have the right printer selected. The one thing that you're probably going to have to set up here is the paper size. For me, all of my landscape photos I print in 17 by 22. And if you're looking for something smaller, you can just print multiples on the same page, but that's my favorite size because that's the maximum size sheet that the Canon Pro-1000, my printer, will handle. And so I'm going to click OK there, go down to print settings, and just make sure everything looks good here. We're printing from the top tray. Paper type is photo paper, and we're good to go here. All other settings are as they should, although there is a little warning sign here that's telling me that the printer is saying there's low ink, but there's enough ink to print it to go ahead and do a print. One thing about the Canon Pro-1000, it's not the most efficient with ink, but it produces a absolutely stunning photograph. Okay, so now that we have our correct paper size and our image, that's a finished edit, we're gonna go to the top of the print screen here. After you get these settings right, if you use the same ones over and over again, you can just save them over here on the left in your template browser or your preset, your saved presets. All right, so what we're gonna do here now is we're gonna go zoom to fill, and that's gonna, any issues with aspect ratio, that's gonna help fix. We'll talk a little more about aspect ratio in a second. Stroke border, it just puts a border around the picture. I don't like that. I don't normally do anything with that. My margins, I keep as small as it'll let me, which is 0.25 inches. It's one row. You can, like I said, you can print multiple images on the same paper if you wanted to, and you can lay them out however you'd like. But in this case, I'm printing a single 17 by 22 image with one row and one column. Now my cell size, this is the part that's gonna adjust how the main appearance here, and so we're gonna raise that height up all the way to the top, 21. Now if you wanted to put some type of border around it, you could get creative with that. It just really depends on how you're framing it or what you're using it for. I'm also going to take my width all the way out to the maximum size. For me, I'm going to put a mat over top of it and put it in a frame, kind of like the ones that you saw a while ago. Okay, so these here in your guides, you have rulers, and there's just different things that really aren't gonna, for me, they don't do a whole lot. I leave them checked just in case maybe I may need them, but they don't help nor hurt me typically in any way. I've printed a lot of photos with an identity plate or watermarking. I tend not to do that anymore. I think it detracts from the photo itself. If you're worried about a copywriting issue or you want to get your signature or whatever on the photo, that's fine. I would just, I'd suggest keeping it small and down in the corner. For me, I'm not going to do that. And if you're printing a series of photos, there's all kinds of different options here that I don't really get into when I'm printing one photo at a time. And I think that's probably what a majority of the people out there are going to be doing, is just one photo. Unless you're in a commercial business where you're printing, 10s and 20s or whatever, the same photo. Typically, this is going to be the average workflow. Now down here on the print job tab, we are going to talk about resolution. And here's how we get our resolution. We're going to let's go back into the develop module, and we have the resolution of our photo. If we take 5464 and we divide that by the inches wide that we're going to be on the narrow side, and so that's going to be 17 because that's the size of the paper. That's how we're formatting the photo. So divide that by 17 and you're going to get 321. Now let's divide the larger side, 6830, divide that by 21, and we're going to get 325. That is the way to get your correct DPI. 300 DPI is usually going to be more than enough quality for most prints that you're doing. However, if you want a mathematical way to really nail it down and get a precise number, this is it. Now this is, like I said, this is the way that I've been taught. If you have another way to determine your DPI, let us know what it is down in the comments. So over here, back into the print module, we're looking at a DPI. I'm going to use 325 because that's very close, and that should give me a great final appearance. Print sharpening. So one thing that you lose when you transition from the computer to paper is sharpness. I always suggest a little bit of sharpening, and in this case I'm going to go with standard, and then the type of paper that you're going to use. I'm using a semi-gloss, so I'm going to stay with glossy as compared to matte. Matte's okay for some scenes, but I like that pop from gloss, and it's really a preference thing. All right, so here's a big one, and this one brings up some controversy sometimes, and this is color management. So you can go in here and you can change the color management up, but what I want to suggest to you is if you went out of your way to purchase an expensive piece of equipment like the Canon Pro-1000, you want your expensive machine to determine the color management, and usually it does a really good job, much better than the software that you're using. That's what I do with this profile, managed by the printer. And you can change this up and do all kinds of other stuff, but I want my printer to be in control here, and so managed by printer leaves that option wide open so that we make sure the printer is handling all color management. And so I'm going to click printer just to make sure everything is still good. And then I can hit print here, or I can go over here and hit print, and away we go.